Admiral of the Fleet, the Earl Mountbatten of Burma, lives in retirement at his home, Broadlands, in Hampshire. Lord Mountbatten's life covers almost exactly the span of this century. He was born into times of drastic change, social change, political, technological. This has been the century of a world in ferment, a century of unprecedented challenge to all descriptions of men. It has always been in the nature of Lord Mountbatten to accept a challenge. He's never ceased to find life exciting, stimulating. Unhesitatingly, he's always accepted the challenge of change. The Earl Mountbatten of Burma is a 20th century man. All through his adult life, Lord Mountbatten has been a controversial figure. At times, even his understanding family has found his course difficult to follow. He dismayed his mother by becoming Viceroy of India. His wife thought that he was wrong to become India's first Governor-General. Yet it is perhaps his family that understands him best. His nephew, the Duke of Edinburgh, has lived under his roof, served under him in the Navy, encountered him at work and at play.
I always felt that the world's made up of people who, of two kinds of people. The majority are those who are perfectly content to let everything go along as before. They will complain, they will explain, they will know about it, but they will let it go on because they're either not interested in doing it differently or they can't visualize how to do it differently. Then there is the very small minority who are prepared to say, stop, this is the wrong way to do it, we're going that way. And these are the people who really make history. These are the people who really set the whole world along a new course.
The new courses of the world were not very apparent when Lord Mountbatten was born. He is the great-grandson of Queen Victoria, christened Louis Francis Albert Victor Nicholas, but always widely known as Dickie. He was born a prince in a period of seeming changelessness. Yet he himself has done much to change his world and ours. The privilege of royal birth conferred undoubted advantages on a sharp-witted, active boy.
My connection with the royal family was, of course, a most consummate disadvantage in the junior ranks of the Navy. It led to my having my bottom kicked more than anybody else because I was, in those days, a prince at Osborne. It led to the fact that all the nicest boys avoided one lest they should be thought they were snobs. It made one suspicious of those who were nice to one unless they were snobs. It took an awful lot of living down, but one gradually lived it down. But the trouble is one had to relive this down in every new mess one went. I knew only too painfully well my first day in any new mess. Everybody was looking at one and saying, oh, so this is the fellow who's married that pretty wife who was in a Tatler the other day. Or this is the fellow who's got that new Rolls Royce. Or this is the fellow that's playing polo. And one knew in one's heart of hearts that they were suspicious and didn't really like it. One knew one had got to batter this down, and the only way was to do one's job cheerfully, as well as one possibly could, and if possible, better than they expected, and perhaps even better than they could. That was the moment the thing turned, and then it became an advantage, because they were surprised to find that one could do things like that, and then they were rather more sympathetic, and so it helped.
The name Mountbatten goes no further back than the year 1917, a year of anti-German hysteria, when the king himself had to change his name. And the Battenberg family became the Mountbattens. The family itself is one of the oldest in Europe. Down the years, it has produced many people of great talent and achievement. The generation from which Lord Louis sprang, his father's and his mother's, was no exception.
His mother was an extraordinary character, tremendously well informed, and with an ability to argue and to discuss intelligently any subject you care to mention. And her brother and herself and her sisters, when they were together, it was the most extraordinary atmosphere because they all talked at once. They could understand what the other was saying, but they never stopped to allow the other one to get a word in edgeways, so that from the point of view of the younger members, I was then relatively small, but I was riveted by this. It was exactly like attending a match at Wimbledon. You were constantly dashing to and fro, wondering where the ball had got to, because they were all talking at once, and they were all contributing, and it was an explosion of ideas. And in this situation, and he and his brothers and sisters were just as intelligent, he didn't really figure particularly as an exception. But I think that the fact that my uncle was younger, in a sense, made him try much harder. He was like Dopey at the end of the dwarves. He was trying to keep up the whole time, and therefore he was trying harder.
To rise in a profession, it is accepted that one must try hard, work hard, show keenness. And if one does all these things, and the rewards follow, inevitably people will accuse one of being merely ambitious.
Ambition's a very funny thing. I only had one conscious, clearly formed ambition. That was to rise to the top of my profession. And obviously to succeed as my father's first Sea Lord. I thought it would be very difficult, but I thought if I worked really hard, it should be attainable. I had a lot of idle sort of daydreams lying in bed before going to sleep, and I thought of the oddest things which were right out of grasp. I thought it would be wonderful after I'd been to India to be Viceroy of India, out of the question as a naval officer. I had a romantic feeling about the glamour of the Garter. I never thought I could get that. I thought the most worthwhile order was the OM. I knew that was out of my reach. I always loved the troop in the colour. I loved the cavalry. And of all the regiments, I admired the Life Guards most, and I thought what fun it would be to ride as the colonel of the Life Guards. The very last thing that ever into my mind was that it would happen. And there are many others of that sort I could mention, but basically the main thing about ambition is it's fun to think of these things. It mustn't interfere with what you're doing. You must never let ambition interfere with a job in hand, which must be done for its own sake.
Whether intentions or only dreams, in the case of Lord Mountbatten, ambition has certainly been achieved. Admiral of the Fleet, Earl, Knight of the Garter, Privy Councillor, Order of Merit, GCB, GCSI, GCIE, etc. DSO, Honorary Lieutenant General and Air Marshal, Fellow of the Royal Society, Freeman of many cities, Elder Brother of Trinity House, Grand President of the British Commonwealth Ex-Service League, President of the Royal Naval Film Corporation, the Society of Genealogists, the Society of Film and Television Arts, Chairman and founder of the National Electronics Research Council, Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor and the Croix de Guerre of France, the Greek Military Cross, Special Grand Cordon of the Cloud and Banner of China, Grand Cross of the Star of Nepal, Order of the White Elephant of Siam, Order of the Lion of the Netherlands, the Edgar Mahapiri Tudema of Burma, the Grand Cross of the Order of the Seal of Solomon of Ethiopia, and much else besides.
I think I've inherited a certain weakness about dressing up. I come from a long line of dressers up. I've had people in ruling houses and in positions who all had glorious full-dress uniforms, who all gave each other orders and decorations, and I think that I've inherited part of that. I must confess it entertains me vastly to be dressed up and to have orders and decorations, except this. I don't want it just to dress up. I want it for something I've done. I want to have earned the uniform, I want to have earned the decoration, and then I'm very pleased to have it. Now, you may say that I had hardly earned my position as Colonel of the Life Guards. The interesting thing is that in these regiments, it is the senior officers, past and present, who in fact decide whom they wish to put up to the Queen for appointment as colonel. And now you can see precisely nothing. There's all you see, the backside of the horse in front of you. It's never happened before that I've asked an officer from another service, and therefore, to me, it was immensely intriguing that the senior regiment of the British Army should have asked an admiral of the fleet to be their colonel. It's true that I've ridden a lot, and we'd seen off the household cavalry polo once or twice, but even so, naturally, I felt that I'd earned it because I'd been chosen.
Rugby and fellas to judgment, Queen's Guard, done!
To command the premier regiment of the household troops is an honour, and for Lord Mountbatten the ceremonial is the outward symbol of that honour. But the Life Guards are fighting troops. They charged home at Waterloo, and in 1944 formed part of the Guards Armoured Division which spearheaded the thrust from Normandy to Holland. In 1967, Lord Mountbatten's regiment was doing a tour of duty in Borneo, Singapore, and Malaya.
When did you join? How long did you?
In July.
July. You got out of Borneo, did you?
Yes, I did.
That was good luck, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Since being appointed, I find myself deeply interested. I've been down to the regiment, half a dozen times, and inspected them and talked to them and met the wives and families and dined with them and gossiped with them and been to their dances. And it's given me a very special lease of life. Because although I do go to naval establishments and perhaps 2 or 3 times a year and address them and speak to them, they no longer belong to me in any sense, but the Life Guards, in quite a special sense, appear to belong to me. I have to pick and appoint the new commanding officer. I have to see all the young candidates for commission. It appears to me that I can do something for them, and funny part is they actually accept me. That's one of the most agreeable surprises I've ever had.
It is not quite such a surprise, but it is certainly a tremendous pleasure and honor also to be Colonel Commandant of the Royal Marines. Twice I've had the good fortune to be able to render this famous amphibious corps a service. Once in 1942, when, as Chief of Combined Operations, I turned the Royal Marine Division into commando brigades. And again in the 50s, as First Sea Lord, when I was able to give them a new lease of life. The signature tune, which is opened and closed every one of the programs in this television series, is their regimental slow march. It was presented to the Royal Marines by me at their tercentenary in 1964.
When Lord Mountbatten retired from active duty in 1965, he relinquished a post which he had held since 1959, Chief of the United Kingdom Defence Staff and Chairman of the Chiefs of Staff Committee. His departure from the Ministry of Defence was marked by the singular honour of a guard from each of the 3 services. Some might comment, ironically, that no one had ever done more to shake the foundations of all 3 services than Lord Mountbatten. during his 6 years of office, he launched and carried forward a reorganization of the national defense system, which has inevitably caused violent controversy, a condition to which Lord Mountbatten is well accustomed.
And here again, he decided to change the course of history. He said, stop. These three independent service ministries don't make any more sense today. What would make a great deal more sense is as a single unified Ministry of Defense. It will be saving in manpower. It will bring together all the things which are common to the three services. And instead of just thinking of it as a sort of abstract thought, he, by that time, with a considerable amount of experience of staff work and what people would take and what they wouldn't take, and by a combination of charm and cajolery and blackmail and general skullduggery, he forced through the most remarkable reorganization that any British government department has seen since the Cardwell reforms of the army, and far more far-reaching. And if you come to think of it, it's about the only government department that has ever been reorganized radically to this extent in recent history.
Retirement, as Lord Mountbatten understands it, is really only a word, and not one to be taken seriously. In so-called retirement, his days are as full and carefully organized as his days as Chief of Combined Operations, Supremo, or Viceroy. Inactivity has always been his enemy. An American admiral once said to him with great accuracy, "Lord Mountbatten, you suffer from very light inertia."
Oh, I suppose ever since the age he was about 20, people have been predicting that he was going to have a nervous breakdown. I remember hearing this ever since I can first remember the word being used and not knowing what it was about. People were saying that Dickie is going to blow up. And the extraordinary thing is that he never has. But what he has done is that whatever he's taken up, whether it's been a game, any job or any occupation, he has applied himself wholeheartedly to it. It's extraordinary when you think that in the middle of the period when he was most heavily occupied as a professional naval officer, he was rewriting the rules of polo.
Polo, it might be thought, is a game. And so it probably was, until Lord Mountbatten took a hand in it. He confesses, or proudly asserts, that he never had any natural talent for the game. He doesn't have a good eye for ball games. He rides well, but not brilliantly. So his success at polo was all hard work. It was practice, 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 and thought. Thought about the polo stick. He invented a new one. Thought about strokes and tactics, with billiard table demonstrations and slow-motion films. And all this digested into a handbook for the benefit of others, because no such thing had ever existed. When he played his first game of polo, he was delighted to have actually hit the ball 3 or 4 times. As time went by, his form improved, and he managed to hit the ball more frequently, and to some effect. In retirement, oddly enough, Lord Mountbatten gives less time to sport than ever before in his life. He applies himself to a cause which now seems to him as vital to national survival and national purpose as anything that he did during the last war. All his life, technology has interested him deeply. Now he regards Britain's technological expertise as the essential foundation of any future greatness. This is why he founded the National Electronics Research Council, now the National Electronics Council, of which he remains chairman. This is why he became president of the British Computer Society and threw every ounce of his considerable energy behind the application of computers to British industry and technology.
Joan, this is a draft of the lecture I'm giving to the Royal Institution. It's entitled The Selective Dissemination of Information, I want you to type it with my large speech typewriter on white quarto sheets as usual. I repeat, the selective dissemination of information lecture to the Royal Institution. It begins. When we in the National Electronics Research Council began our investigations, we found that at the beginning of the 19th century, the number of scientific journals was about 100. In 1850, it was about 1,000. And by 1900, it had reached 10,000. Today, it may be as high as 1 million, as you were. Today, it may be as high as 100,000. At this rate of growth, it could reach 1 million by the end of this century. Each journal publishing dozens of papers and articles each year. Our object is to grip this problem, this information explosion. And so we have developed a project we call the Selective Dissemination of Information, or SDI for short.
I first became aware of Dickie Mountbatten's interest in scientific methods in combined operations, the whole environment of which was new and experimental. It was in the early part of 1942 that he got in 3 scientific advisors. One of them was Desmond Burnell, another Geoffrey Pike, and the third myself. Scientists had been in command before, but Mountbatten got them involved in every aspect of the work of his headquarters, from the design of new equipment and weapons to operational planning. Well, about 10 years ago, we joined forces again in the old Ministry of Defense, where we worked as a triumvirate, the other member of the party being the permanent secretary. And then subsequently in the work which led up to the design of the new integrated Ministry of Defense. And throughout all this, Dickie Mountbatten was always concerned that scientists were consulted at every turn. And it was through him that I was able, I think, to win the point that the boards of the Navy, of the Army, and of the Air Force should have as full members as scientists. And I'm quite certain in my own mind that this would never have come about if he had not been the Chief of Defense Staff at the time.
An obvious attribute of leadership is mental energy. Equally important is physical energy. That is why so many leaders of men have gone to great lengths to remain physically fit.
I don't think I ever went in for a deliberate cult of physical fitness. I think energy is required in the first instance to keep yourself going, undoubtedly. One must never be tired. One must never be in the mood where one can't take bad news. People must be able to come to you at any time and say a battle is going wrong. But you also want this energy to impart it to others. If they see that you are full of life and vigor, full of good cheer, then you get things done gladly and willingly. People will work long hours feeling that they're working on a team where it's fun to be working on a team.
Classibourne Castle is the Mountbatten seat in Ireland, in County Sligo. Perched on the very fringe of the Atlantic Ocean, this Victorian Gothic fantasy in miniature looks out over a sea which can be famously cruel or as blue and inviting as the Mediterranean. During the summer, Americans take over the castle, except for the month of August, when the whole Mountbatten family assembles at Classibourne for a ritual called the holiday. Daughters, sons-in-law, grandchildren, 10 of them now, and nannies fill every corner of the castle, which seems to throb with the constant, diverse, but always highly organized activities which constitute their relaxation. Like everything else to do with Lord Mountbatten, holidays are strenuous.
Come on. You clumsy...
Oh, he hasn't got it.
I thought he had.
Falls off.
Pull it in. Lift it up, clear the boat. Lift it up. Good, right up, in. Come on, put it out to the side. Don't get down to the boat. Lift it up. Come on, right in. Up. That's better. No. Not a very big one, I must say.
There you are. Tea. Margaret, did you want tea? Margaret?
Oh, want some tea? Want
You
some
haven't had
Cynthia?
tea? Can you bear having hot milk in it, or would you rather not have milk in it?
Where's Nicholas? Nicholas? Where's Nicholas? Come on, Nicholas. There you are. Hurry up. Hello, twins.
Believe it.
Oh, up. There we are. Now,
I found some more milk.
Nicholas wants something to eat. He's got two things, like one thing in each hand.
No,
You got something too, have you? Here you have. Give me a hand.
Well, look, I'll let you off the promise if Grandpa wants you to.
Right to go. You want some help, Ed?
He don't.
I might try and get half a dozen prawns.
Where? In the harbour. They said there are a lot there.
I want one assistant to hold my bucket while I prawn. Keep hold on the bucket.
I've got to get down there somehow.
Maybe some here. Now, what else?
Yes, I've got a few. Yeah, I'm going to get some drinks.
Take them right.
I'll see them.
Right at the back, by the wood, by the handle. Put your hand right by the handle.
It's gone.
It's there.
It isn't. Oh, yes, it is.
Prawning in the harbour of Mullaghmore is just one of the rituals of the Classiborn holiday.
Up she goes.
Another ritual, calling for all the Mountbatten qualities of organisation and command, is the building of the dam.
Oh, dear, oh, dear.
Look, let's have a go.
I'll have a go with that.
You can have a go. Here I.
What are you trying to do?
Digging here. Well,
Dig this side.
It's no good going that direction. You want to do it out.
Out where?
Out that way. Fill up the fast bit here.
No, this one is going to all go over there then.
No, put it this way. Go on, do it yourself.
Can't we do it so it goes round
Yeah.
there?
Yes, and dig it out from this side. Make it sort of shallow here. Start here.
Oh, you're quite right, yeah, okay.
Start here and dig up. Okay,
No,
sorry.
I want to start here so we can dam it, you see.
Give it to me, I say. Now, listen, you
Okay,
start,
good.
make the hole here. There it is, see? From here, then you start doing the dam.
Yeah.
Out of the way, Fee. Then it'll come, see? Here. I'm not conscious of setting myself standards. I'm absolutely determined to do the job as I consider it should be done. I'm not satisfied until it's done exactly the way I would wish it done. I expect staff officers and others who have jobs to do it exactly the way I would wish it would be done. If it isn't, they do it again. If I make a muck of it, I do it again. I go on until I'm satisfied with it. There's only one answer, that is the right answer. That one knows when one's got to. That's right, Wiener, you go ahead. Jolly good. Put it in the bucket and fill the bucket up. That's better. That's very intelligent. Now, you've got to work hard. Everybody get to the gap. All hands to the gap.
in the gap.
All hands to the gap. Give me that spade. Oh, come on, it's my turn. Now, get small people out of the gap. Now, look out. We're going to fill up the gap. Ready? Here goes. I think it's true that I had a sort of subconscious feeling that only I could do the job the way I wanted it done to my own perfection. I don't say other people couldn't have done the job perhaps better than me, but they wouldn't have done it in my way. And my way was the way I wanted to have the job done. And so I had a feeling that nobody else could do it as well, the way I wanted it done, as I could do it. That made me work very hard to try and to do many of these things myself. There was a time I had great difficulty in decentralizing. I nearly killed myself in combined operations through overwork for that very reason. And yet in Southeast Asia, I did learn to decentralize. I did learn to give general directions and allow other people to get on with it. That's right. It's a very, very good dam, this, I must say. It's going at good speed here. Clear it up here. Keep it going. Look, it's coming at tremendous speed here. It really is good.
Oh, don't we?
That's right. Let her do it.
There we are.
There you are. 1, 2, 3, oops!
Oh.
Ashton on the 1, 2, 3, whoopsie. Any more small ones? One. Yes, twins. Where are the twins? Where are the twins?
I'll take this twin.
Come on. Upsy daisy.
Hold tight, twin.
All right. Advance, Smoke. Advance. Come on. What about getting the two big boys pushing behind?
Yes.
Norton and Michael John. Oi! Come and push behind. At the double. We don't want to be up at the RSPCA. You've got to push. You ready? We're going to go down that way now. Are you ready? Stand by. Push. Advance, Smoke. Come on. Push, boys. Well, I've been a staff officer myself, and I know exactly what it's like to be well handled or badly handled. And I did always try and consciously not do the things to my staff that I didn't like when they were done to me. I think I can honestly say I was reasonable with the main part of my staff. The only people I was always consistently unreasonable to were my own ADCs. When they came to me, I used to warn them, if I'm frightfully overwrought and ratty, I'll take it out on you. Try and forget about it. Is that what you like to see? Come on, hop, up there, come on. Where's Adrena got to? The grandchildren are fun because one can have a very gay time with them without worrying about whether, in fact, they're being taught good manners and to behave well. That's the parents' job. So naturally it's fun playing with the grandchildren. But the real fun is the family atmosphere, which is very free and easy. There's very little respect shown to me, and it would be a very sad day if they were respectful to me. But they're friendly. They take one as a sort of older friend. Much more so than in my young day. Come on, come on, come on, come on, next to me now. Now, come on, hold on to the 20. Edwina, hold Nicholas's hand, that's right. Now, come on, hold Nicholas's hand. Hold Nicholas's hand, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on.
Leadership, whether in peace or war, inevitably has its grimmer side, its moments of sheer unpleasantness.
One of the greatest difficulties about effective leadership in war is there comes a time when you must be ruthless. There comes a time when an officer in high command has failed you or opposes you and won't allow you to do what you want. And you have to ask him to go. It's very hard, it's very difficult, it's very painful. But if you haven't got a certain ruthless streak that makes you do it, then you'll fail. Because by God, if you keep the wrong chap in a high place out of the kindness of your heart, you're risking the whole war effort, you're risking other people's lives. Getting rid of people never gives me a relish at all. Getting the better of people when they were wrong, obstructive, and stupid gives me a great kick. That is one of the rewards for having got a thing through which is going to be good, because there's no other form of rewards in that sort of private life. I don't believe that one ever gets any relish out of doing anything unkind or ruthless. The relish comes entirely from the result. If stupid people fight you because they're stupid, and you can show them up and win, well, that's fun. That's worth doing. I get a great kick out of that sort of fight. I go into any fight. In fact, I'm spoiling for a fight. I'm spoiling as a sort of knight errant to take up some lost cause and win through stupidity, ignorance, prejudice, backward-looking people. That's fun.
Lord Mountbatten's arrivals upon scenes of confusion, stalemate, or even downright defeat have generally been exciting occasions. The impact of his cheerful energy is instantaneous. His arrival in Singapore in September 1945 was such an occasion, marking a crossroads in his life. It was well understood that he'd come as a victorious Supreme Allied commander to accept with due ceremony the surrender of nearly 750,000 Japanese in Southeast Asia. What was not so well understood, perhaps even by the Supreme Commander himself, was that this moment would also mark the beginning of a political approach, a new mood and a new method to deal with a profoundly significant new problem. A Upon Admiral Mountbatten, wrote the official historian, fell the perplexing task of conducting the early fateful contacts of the West with the upsurge of nationalism in Southeast Asia. Already, in Burma, Lord Mountbatten had laid down the lines of his policy, taken in loneliness, and well ahead of general opinion. In simple words, to try to make Asian nationalists friends, not enemies of Britain. Now, in Singapore, he would attempt the same thing with Malaya, Siam, Indonesia, and Indochina, which we now call Vietnam. The implications were revolutionary. The decision changed his life.
We all in the immediate family, we sympathized with what he was trying to do because he made it intelligible. And there were some very severe and fierce arguments, but I think we all had sufficient experience of his success and his general approach to realize that by the time he'd made up his mind to do something, there was a very good reason for it. He didn't jump to conclusions. He didn't ever embark on anything without thinking it through extremely carefully. He always knew not only the next move, but about the next 3 moves, and he knew what he was trying to achieve, and he was perfectly content to put up, well, when I say content, he was prepared to put up with a great deal of hostility, a great deal of vituperation, because he knew that ultimately he was right, and he was going to be right. And he, rather than feel angry with the people who ostracized him, who blackballed him, who refused to receive him, or who attacked him, he just felt rather sorry for them, that they didn't see the point.
You see, you've got to realize that very occasionally I have a hunch and I follow a hunch. Broadly speaking, I, in fact, have all the facts before me before I make a decision. I have always worked with a staff I liked and trusted. I would discuss everything with them. We would generate a common thought. It was what I used to call the spirit of the hive, where everybody was working to the same end. I influenced the spirit of the hive by saying what I wanted done, but my God, I was influenced by the spirit of the hive, indicating to me what I should do. You've got to have enormous self-confidence, an enormous sureness of your judgment to be able to switch a judgment. It's the weak-minded people who, having laboriously come to a conclusion, can't be shifted from it because they've made up their mind. They don't want to have to make it up again. I've always been into all the factors. I've had everybody called in. Above all, I always want to hear the opponents of the course of action I want to take. I want them to make their points. And if they win, I'll give up the particular course of action. But it does at least make one clear one's mind. One must be absolutely certain. And then suddenly the door opens and another opponent comes in with an overriding factor. All right, you say, you win, I won't do it.
In retirement, promoting new causes, operating in unfamiliar fields, the Mountbatten qualities continue to be displayed. The readiness to do battle and the readiness to discuss. The meticulous organization and the hunch. The spirit of the hive, now applied to the unaccustomed business of farming his estate.
And of course it was a bit of a mess, but I run it now really rather like a service establishment.
That ought to shake the farmers, I think, doesn't it?
Well, I have an estate committee meeting. We meet once a month, which it has the agent, the surveyor who does the houses. We have the accountant who does the cost accounts. My secretary does the sort of secretary of the committee. John, of course, is here with all his experience.
And you've given them all appropriate initials, have you, like in the true service fashion?
And Patricia sits there in order to discuss the housing. We've got a first-class farm manager who's a member of the estate committee. And he's really gripped it, and we now farm in a big way. And that's the only way to do it, I think, now.
Oh, Lord, yes. But it's, we have exactly the same problem. The interesting thing is the extent to which really the sort of modern and technology and electronics really have got an impact on farming. I mean, tremendous possibilities there are.
But I don't believe it's possible to compete with all the modern difficulties unless you do it on an adequate scale. In fact, I'd like to have all our tenant farmers here come in and have a sort of centralized pool of machinery and at least a centralized maintenance organization
Yes, well, either that or you have to have a bigger unit in the first place.
Well, that's right.
Incidentally, one of the fascinating things I discovered at this, the two fascinating things I discovered at this meeting, one is that, you know, these battery hens, you don't keep them here.
No, never happened. She said it was cruel.
Well, you know, there's a real problem, I gather, amongst these, and that is that they won't sit down to lay anymore. They just stand and lay. Well, because
they crack the eggs.
And the eggs crack. It's a serious problem. Yeah.
So what, you have an omelette right away?
No, but more or less, but I'm in the wrong place. But the other problem is that you get these bigger and bigger units of milking herds where one man can operate them. But one of the difficulties is apparently is to discover, if there's so many of them, and he doesn't know them all quite so intimately, when the different cows are ready for the bull, you see.
I see, yeah.
And this is really holding up the process.
Yeah.
And so there was a suggestion by somebody or other that they should insert a little electronic device in the cow's brain or something, which would register on the...
Ready for the bull?
When it was ready for the bull. And of course, some idiot then suggested that we should do the same thing with the chickens and send a message to them saying, for God's sake, sit down.
As Chief of Combined Operations, Supreme Commander, or Viceroy, Lord Mountbatten was never in the habit of leaving much to chance. His attention to detail was proverbial, sometimes notorious. Not much escapes his eye today.
How's it going today? You're spilling a lot of potatoes?
Going lovely today.
It is?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to have a look, because you know she sometimes doesn't pick up all the potatoes.
No, sometimes.
All right, we'll have a look.
Right.
Tony, let's have a look here. Whoa, 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 wait, whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, too tough. Too tough. Susan, I can't hear myself think. By God, you got a lot of potatoes here, haven't you? Look at them. Not so many as last time.
No, there are very few, and they're small. That we
Well,
can't
very
cut
good.
them.
What's it like, the harvest? Good?
Yeah, very nice.
Right here, off you go. Off you go.
It was only a year after his retirement that the public saw once more this quality of precision and the capacity for concentrated work that goes with it. In October 1966, Lord Mountbatten was appointed by the government to conduct an inquiry into prison escapes and security. In just under 2 months, he had completed his investigation and presented his report.
That prison report showed one great characteristic of Lord Mountbatten: urgency, a sense of drive, producing results quickly. But he didn't just take what was given to him in reports from other people. He insisted on seeing the problem for himself. And having made up his mind, then we got the report. And there'd been another report, a little earlier, which showed yet another quality of his attitude to public affairs, and that was the report on Commonwealth immigration. This was a deeply divisive, human problem, controversial, and of course it involved great problems between Commonwealth countries. And this brought out his great diplomacy and tact, and also he brought another asset, and that was, of course, his reputation as the former Viceroy of India, who had played such a leading part with Clem Attlee and others in creating the modern Commonwealth whose problems he was now analyzing. But if I were asked what I feel he's perhaps even most noted for, what I'd most associate with him, it is modernization. Over a long period, in a long lifetime of service in the defense services and in other ways, he's always kept abreast of the times and usually ahead of them. As a young naval officer, he was interested in the most modern new techniques of that day. And today, and the same will be true of tomorrow, because he's going to continue with this, he has shown great leadership in the field of electronics. Not only electronics, which are so central to any modern defense system, but the electronics of industry and the technological revolution through which we're living. That, I think, is what we're going to see as his next great contribution to the lifetime and to the work of our nation. That, then, is Dickie Mountbatten. Diplomatist, scientist, And I doubt if many things have given him more pleasure than his election as a Fellow of the Royal Society. A leader of men and one who encouraged young men, a great defense administrator, and a man who, in everything he has done, has always been ready to see a problem in all its size and not to be daunted by it, to take the challenge that he was facing and to be as big as the challenge.
How will the future remember Lord Mountbatten of Burma? An impossible question. He has always lived in the future. He still does. Matters which concern him today have yet to reveal their future significance and value. But the present achievement remains a very large story, even if incomplete. Will the Navy remember the wireless specialist, the communicator, or the dashing Captain D5, whose ship sank under him in the Battle of Crete? Or the son who followed his father as first Sea Lord and then abolished the Board of Admiralty? Will history remember him as the pioneer of military techniques who paved the way for D-Day and the successful invasion of Europe in 1944? Already fickle memory tends to forget the Supreme Commander who liberated Burma. But in Burma itself, Lord Mountbatten's title is remembered and respected for reasons which that country finds it less easy to forget. Burma was where he began to change the course of history. As the last Viceroy of India in 1947, Mountbatten made what may well be acknowledged as his greatest mark on history. In this, he was, not for the first time, greatly aided and supported by his beautiful and brilliant wife, Edwina Mountbatten, whose memory is as greatly revered and perhaps even more deeply loved than Lord Mountbatten himself in India today. Yet it was in India, at the age of 47, at the height of remarkable powers, that he realized the dreams of 400 million people, brought freedom to a subcontinent and new nations to birth. Lord Mountbatten's talent is for action. Philosophizing does not come naturally to him. But out of his royal birth, the wealth which he inherited and the wealth which came to him by marriage, his industry and his aptitudes, a philosophy of life did in time emerge. Whatever project might be in hand, whatever cause he might be fighting for, he has been sustained by the reflection that at bottom he had nothing to lose.
I care what people whose opinion I value think about me, and I'm worried if they think badly of me. But if the rank and file think I'm wrong, and I don't happen to value their opinion very much, it doesn't disturb me in the least. If one went through life, particularly in high command, trying to do the things that were popular or well-liked, if one had to gain votes or increase one's box office rating, one might behave differently. But it would be a sad day, so for me, I would find it a very difficult discipline to learn, to try and please people. People either can take one because they, on the whole, value one, or they can dislike one, or fear one, or despise one. It leaves me cold. All I want to know is, was I right? Were they wrong? Will they eventually come round and see it? Or are they so dumb that it'll have to be their children or grandchildren who see perhaps this series of films in 50 years' time will realize that I was fairly reasonable, and the people who thought I was wrong were the ones who were unreasonable. Without that sort of self-confidence, it would be difficult to carry on.